Dr. Shola, welcome to Anti-Racism Live.
Thank you.
The first question I wanted to ask you, Dr. Shola, the 21st of March, the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, Anti-Racism Day. Where do you feel the global community is right now in relation to eradicating racism?
Well, I'm going to be very frank. I don't think we're anywhere near enough to eradicating racism. And the reason for this is because we're still very much at I suppose, at the stage where people are talking at each other about what racism is. And people are using the expression of hate that is racism as a catch-all phrase for every other expression of hate. I think there's a lot of ignorance and confusion and conflation going on within national societies and global societies, that we are not where we need to be so that we can actually address the steps that need to that will take us forward. So I think that when it comes to eradicating racism, which I think is both an individual and collective responsibility, where we are struggling is the information, is the knowledge, is the content. Because until we get that right, we're not going to be able to successfully and effectively eradicate it.
Thank you, Dr. Shola. I have to ask, we're seeing an increase in racism, in hatred, divided communities as a consequence of the global crises that we're facing. What's your assessment of the situation and what can we do to turn it around?
Okay, so the rising expressions of hate in global communities again stems from poor leadership. And I say poor leadership because those who are in positions of power and influence, there are many of them who are not driving change the way it ought to be. So, for instance, when you look at political leaders, they're being driven by their own political ambitions rather than by what will be better for the society when it comes to eradicating racism. But then when you break that down, you realize it's the people that elect the leaders. So what is going on at a societal basis that leads to us having such poor leadership? We can't talk about global leadership or addressing this increasing expressions of hate and the height it's getting to without taking responsibility for how we elect those we place in positions of power and how we use our own individual powers of influence to shape a better community, a better society, whether that is with your family or with your friends or at your school or in your workplace. We all have that responsibility. So, there are the increasing global crisis that we've seen, right? Whether it's wars, whether it comes from the ongoing inequalities, be it poverty, be it wealth. All of these things help to exacerbate racism. It helps to create an intersecting inequality where people, ethnic minorities around the world who are experiencing racism are further experiencing inequalities and injustices, which quite frankly make racism even worse. And that is what we need to be tackling. What we need to be doing going forward is tackling how these intersecting inequalities are addressed, identifying what these intersecting inequalities are, and then delivering justice for every injustice.
Yeah, it's very sad. I've been on the road 25 years, as you know, Dr. Shola. I've been to many countries and many areas of conflict. The recent conflicts, and of course there are many in the world today, but we're really seeing a divide that's like nothing I've ever known. I mean, how are you coping with that and sort of dealing with that in the public domain? Because you're a voice that people want to get an understanding of how to cope with the crisis that we're seeing.
I'm not dealing with it well. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm human. I'm getting angrier by the day. Now, some people will say, well, she's always angry. But I promise you, this is like next level anger that is, it's kind of rooted in this profound sense of powerlessness. Because I really feel what can I do? I'm not as powerful as these countries who are making incredibly terrible decisions, placing populations at risk of genocide, of famine. I mean, it's mind-boggling that we in 2024 we've learned nothing from history. I'll be honest, it's soul wrenching for me to see children being deprived of food and water, for me to see people, innocent people, being ethnically cleansed and being exterminated. I don't know anybody that can see what is going on, whether it's in Gaza, in Congo, in Sudan, and all these other places, and I'll go, what the heck are we doing? How are we allowing this to happen? And for a lot of people, because I've kind of got to the point where I'm like, look, whatever I have is what I'm going to use. I'm going to stop feeling powerless. In fact, I can't help but not feel powerless compared to, say, the military power, the economic power, and so forth of states, of nation states. Okay, I have nothing compared to them, but I do have my voice, and I do have my platform, and I do have. I don't know. I have a soul. So even if I don't have a platform, I have a voice. I will use what God has given me. And part of the reason why I say I'm not dealing with it well is because, to be honest with you, Jeremy, you're going to find some of my social media posts that lack any form of patience. I'm so way past patience. Like, oh, maybe I should write this more softly. No, you're going to feel my rage, my frustration, and my powerlessness because I am hurting. I'm hurting. The people who are being hurt are hurt more than I am, and I'm hurt that I can do nothing about what they're going through. So I see no reason why I should be I don't know, diplomatic about my hurt. Or why I should. Well, actually, there are two sides. There are not two sides when it comes to evil. There's one side. Okay, they're innocent people on both sides, and the innocent people should have our support. But when you see people or a state that's committing genocide, where you see people with the national military power breaking international law with impunity, you should scream and say, no, not on my watch. When we say never again, it's never again for all, not never again for some. When we say lives matter, it's lives matter for all, not lives matter for some. This has to be the rule that we live by.
Oh God, Dr. Shola, sorry. It's really heavy, isn't it? All of this. I mean, it's just tough to kind of get your head around it. I was just thinking. Well, I think I probably got emotional at this point. I was just thinking about our children, and your children, and my little girl. What are you saying to your children, and how are you handling trying to help them make sense of the world they're coming into when they see what we're doing to each other, to our air, our land, our sea? How are you dealing with that, Dr. Shola?
I'm having frank conversations with my children. There is no sugarcoating anything at all. I think it is important for children today to be well informed, to be given the tools for them to read information and then make their own informed decision about what they're witnessing. So I have very frank conversations with my kids. The same way I would speak to an adult is how I speak to my kids. And my kids can see my pain. We share links, we share videos, we share things that are going on. And if they ask me for an explanation, I give them one. But it's more of a conversation, and they give me explanations where I'm like, oh, what happened there? Well, mommy, here's the context. And it's so important for us to have these ongoing conversations with our children and with the younger generation, because they're the ones that are going to have to pick up the mess that we are creating in our generation. Because let's not be in any doubt that there will be consequences for what is happening today. And those consequences, I don't think we've begun to even feel the brunt of it. There's just no doubt of it in my mind. And sometimes I have to try and find a way to keep my own mental health, like my sanity. And and I think it's important to have that kind of conversation with children because it is heavy. If it's heavy for me, and I'm in my late 40s, how is my 17-year-old going to feel about it? Or my 14-year-old or my 11-year-old? Of course, it's going to feel very heavy for them too. And so it's so important for them to know this is what is happening. Let's talk about it. If you have any cobwebs in your head about, or does it mean this, mommy, or does it mean that? Well, I think it means this. And they have conversations. If my husband is in the room, we have conversations because he does not necessarily think exactly the same way I do. He might have a totally different perspective. And I think that is where a richness in perspectives will help children rather than in looking as though we are, I don't know, indoctrinating them into one way of thinking. I mean, that's just not right. My parents didn't bring me up that way. So, but I would always give my kids my view. My husband would give them their view, but his own view. But we always say to them, you need to go read up stuff. You need to go hear what other people are saying. Just expand your thinking, and then you can make an informed decision.
Dr. Shola, thank you for that. Thank you. Can I ask you, in relation to eliminating racial discrimination and the protection of humanity, where do you draw your hope from? What keeps you focused and committed?
I'll be honest with you, humanity. I think our humanity is so much stronger and better than the many examples we see today that is an attack on our humanity. My faith keeps me strong. I'm a faith believer. I have a relationship with God. And I believe that, we are placed on earth to be a blessing, not to be a curse. Do you see what I mean? So, and the fact that I see so many like-minded people around the world gives me hope, especially the next generation, when I see them, organizing protests, when I see them using their platforms to educate others, to challenge the status quo. That is so, so powerful to me. I mean, my time when I was younger, there was no social media. Your circle was pretty much a circle of family, friends, school friends, yada, yada. But now with social media, you have a global community of friendships, of connections. And I find that the youth of today are maximizing that to full capacity. I love that. And that gives me hope. It gives me hope because we are talking, we're engaging. And I think we are all part. Humanity is one body, okay? Like if you look at it as using the analogy of the human body, some of us are the eyes, nose, mouth, ears, arms, fingers, legs, knees. We all play a part. And I think that if we all understand who we are, accept our natural gifts, talents, and passions for what they are, we end up playing our role in the body of humanity. And I think if we keep moving in that direction, change will come. It will come for the persecuted minorities. It will come for those who desire a world that is fairer and a world where justice is not denied nor delayed because of the color of your skin. It means that we create a world where women are equal to men. And equality to men does not mean we now have to do everything men do or men have to do everything we do. No, it's that we are treated, recognized, and acknowledged as equals. And that equality would then feed into the equity, which is the outcome. So, yeah, I think that gives me a lot of hope. I'll be honest with you, because I'm human, right? Yeah, there are times where I'm like, oh, my goodness, what the heck? What was that? I have those moments when I go, okay, Shola, it's time to just take a break, take a self-care break. And I go into feeding my face with ice cream, my favorite ginger nut biscuits with crumbs all over my duvet, and I put on Netflix or something to watch. I just take a moment. Of course, I'm usually praying about stuff and asking God to give me strength. But yeah, sometimes you need to take a break in a way that just gives you that moment of peace where you can reflect, recollect, and get back up again.
Thank you. Finally, Dr. Shola, I'd like to ask you, for the person, we've talked about really heavy things today. And there are people at home watching who feel disempowered How can I contribute in relation to the elimination of racial discrimination, or indeed, the breakdown that we're seeing within our communities and the wider world? What recommendation would you give to them? What resources or places should they go to be inspired to engage?
So the first thing I would say you should that I'll put on that list is don't be ignorant. Do not delegate responsibility of your learning and responsibility of unpicking your wrong learning to somebody else. So for instance, when we talk about race, and when I talk about racism, I'm talking about racism as a power construct created by the white race for the benefit of white people to the detriment of black and brown people. Racism in reality has no other definition. I know people are trying to expand it to this and that. Please, people stay focused. It means that when you want to address issues of racism, if you're white, do not leave it to your black and brown brothers and sisters to go, okay, now here's what you have to do. This is what you're going to say. You're leaving it to them to break it to you softly. They don't have time for that. They're the ones dealing with the racism, okay? Conversations are absolutely good, but you have to take responsibility. And I would say to my black and brown brothers and sisters that mouth God gave us, we use it. Speak up and speak loud. And when it comes to another point on the list, when it comes to, I feel powerless, what can I do? This goes to my point earlier. You are not as powerless as you think. That's the conclusion I had to come to because I was feeling powerless too. And sometimes I still feel powerless. But that's because I'm comparing myself to, to kind of levels in society where, of course, at a macro level, I don't have that power or influence like a national state. So why am I looking up there? No, let me take it at a micro level. I am grassroots. What can I do? What conversations can I have? How can I be an influencer and shape my community? Whether it's my family, my friends, my classmates, my workmates, what can I do? How can I participate and engage? Where can I contribute my time? Or make donations? How can I educate myself? What documentaries can I continue to read, to watch? What books can I continue to read? Things like this help. I mean, even participating in the Peace One Day events, this is how you continue to increase your knowledge and you engage with ongoing discourse, because that is the thing. This issue of eradicating racism, it is evolving because the existence of racism, it's not behind us. And it evolves with its time. The language of racism evolves with its time. So your knowledge of racism has to evolve with the time. So it is important that you never delegate responsibility for your knowledge, for your ability, for your capacity, and of your power to anybody else. And I'll say to my white brothers and sisters, the privilege that comes with being in a society like the West, which favors white people over black and brown people, it places on you a privilege. And that privilege to me comes with responsibility. So, for instance, I would say that I would never benefit from white privilege because I am not white. But why don't we take a look at some of the things I'll benefit from because my society caters to that. I'm a Christian. So I know that the society I live in caters to Christians over our Muslim brothers and sisters, which means that it affords me a privilege that comes with a responsibility to ensure that my Muslim brothers and sisters are not denied an equal value of life and liberty. We need to understand that. Understand where your privilege lies, and where that privilege comes responsibility. Or for instance, that I live in a society that caters more to heterosexuals over those from the LGBTQIA community, which means that as a heterosexual, I have a privilege. And that privilege comes with the responsibility of ensuring that my LGBTQIA brothers and sisters are not denied an equal value of life and liberty. So going back to my white brothers and sisters, this is why you should ensure that the privilege bestowed on you because you're white does not in any way deny an equal value of life and liberty to your black and brown brothers and sisters. The same I'll say to men. The society we live in caters to the patriarchy. It affords you a privilege that women don't have. And that privilege means you get a responsibility to ensure that women are not denied an equal value of life and liberty. So if you follow this analogy and understand what your privileges are and where you fall in the spectrum of, wow, okay, this is what society affords me and this is what society denies me, you should see where your power lies and what you can do and what you can do to create a better society. We all have that responsibility.
Dr. Shola, you've been an incredible supporter to Peace One Day for many years. I thank you for that, and I wish you the very best on your journey.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, and well done to Peace One Day and the entire team.
Thank you, Dr. Shola.